Welcome, everybody, to Salesforce Field Service Office Hours. My name is Leanne Nugent, and I am here to talk about what it takes to implement Salesforce Field Service. So, when we started these office hours up again, part of it was because I just missed the group and how we just dug into the product to solve business problems. And part of the thing was, how do we make this tool work? That was the first reason. And then we've evolved into, okay, now we've got this business use case. How do we manipulate the technology to make that happen? We've had this field service checklist for a long time, and it's evolved over the years. And as you see, I have not evolved it again to change the name from SFS or from FSL to SFS. It will be FSL forever in our hearts. And then also part of it was we now have access to this, set up the basics in all of our orgs now. So now that we've got this quick way of standing up field service, how much of our checklist do we really need to still go through? So I've put, I haven't evolved it since we first looked at this. Everything that's in green are candidates to be replaced with this wizard, if you will. And some of them, as you can see, we still might need to, I don't know exactly why these are grayed out. Maybe it's because it's done and you can't redo them again, but these are grayed out. But one of the things that was pretty cool about these get ready for scheduling piece was it's a better way of creating work types, service territories, and service resources and dispatchers. So a really fast way to create all of this reference data. One of the challenges that we have when setting up this reference data, for example, work types. When we're creating a new work type, we have to already have an idea of what skills, what type of work is it, how long does it take? And I have some customers who don't really have an idea of how long it takes to do work. I have some customers who say the duration of work depends on what equipment we're servicing. And then they'll say it also depends on the type of work we're performing on that particular asset. So, for example, a maintenance job for a particular product type could take 4 hours, but maintenance on another product type could take 8 hours. So we've got this concept of a matrix style of work types as a template where it's dependent on what we're servicing and what we're doing, and sometimes the combination of both. Anybody want to chime in on any other complexities around creating work types and what other strategies we might need to adopt when we're looking at work types?
So if you were to bow to the system a little bit, there would be whether they auto-create essays, or I mean, not cheating off the screen, but there may be some you want to hold in reserve. Also, again, bowing to the system because the way maintenance plans work, we're often in control of creating and deriving those work orders from something else. But when the system's in charge, it may or may not hit your other automations or have the sourcing for if it's at this site, it's going to be this, or if it's in the daytime, it's got to be that or whatever. You may, in fact, make work types that are used exclusively for your maintenance plans, maybe even some cowboy stuff like it's used when the maintenance plan creates it. And if you have some other heavy automation you don't want to overburden that process with, you swap it out later and tack things on yourself. So there could be like placeholder work types for that reason. Maybe that fits the I don't know the duration kind of thing. I think about billing systems, things like that. If we charge for this kind of work and not that kind of work, whether it's under contract or not, right? I could go fix your copier and Thomas could go fix your copier, but if this one's under a maintenance plan and that one's not, there may be certain things covered and certain things not, and you may want to tell those apart by the work type you use.
Yep. Love it. Thank you. The if we were to stand up something, let's say, Bruce, right? And it's something that we just want to kick off discovery with.
Hmm?
Um, like we've done basic work types to basically just illustrate a
Yeah.
simple use case. And so we've done this all the time where it's just like very relatable install, break fix, inspections, basic things like that. One of the things that we've also done too was we wanted to iterate, oh, if this is for a multi-day job or if this is for a crew job, right? So just to illustrate what the capabilities of the system is. So if we, I guess, order of execution perspective, thought of it as the initial build is meant to facilitate discovery sessions,
Right.
right?
You're
Get
stubbing something in so that people can get a picture of what is possible without getting too lost in ours takes 4.5 hours, not 4 hours. Show it off rather than building what they have. The other thing that occurred to me is a project we did quite recently, quite close to home, is this work type is about a sales meeting, and this other work type is about installing what was sold. There can be very different audiences of who and how you allow it to be set up. These can be self-serve, those can't. These, we're going to look for a totally different population of service resource.
That's a very good call. Yeah. Some work types, like really, we don't want to be designed for self-serve. So yeah, having a particular one designed for self-serve, that might be a good, yeah, capability to demonstrate. Because self-service, okay, so part of this discussion too, little squirrel moment, I would like to layer in some of the other advanced capabilities of field service. The initial thought that I had was just, oh, first thing is to just schedule the appointment, just like internally. But if the customer signed up with appointment assistant, then yeah, we should know that right away and we should demonstrate the capabilities of appointment assistant right away, I think. Hey, Lori, thanks for hopping on. Yeah, all really good stuff. So I think that, oh, so then the other thing that we've done in the past was we've put together a workbook, like an Excel spreadsheet that provided the customer with all of the fields and tabs for each one of the objects where we would have to create the reference data for. And in an effort to teach them to more think, we're going to need records for this. And so think of it as this is going to be an import sheet because we had some customers where they had over 50 work types and then over 1,000 service resources. So a lot of them would give us that spreadsheet so that we could do an import exercise as opposed to manually creating them. So I've done it where I've set up my own, maybe taking into consideration what they provided me in that worksheet because they already get that mapping. But for those who have no idea how to fill out the workbook, I'm just usually okay, just scribe the work that you do. And then I just would create some, yeah, stubs of work types to just demonstrate how the tool would work. But I do like that creating the skills, adding the skills to the work type is all in this really nice interface. It simplifies it so much more. One thing that I also tend to caution on in the first iteration is maybe don't introduce skills because we don't necessarily know who has what skill, or maybe just only design one of the work types to have a skill and then make sure that you've got service resources that have those skills to match. That way you can demonstrate how the scheduling engine filters out the correct person based off of skill. So sometimes giving every work type a skill and every service resource a skill right out the gate, knowing that it's just fudged data might be a lot to undo. So I would rather just like maybe do one or two work types that have a single skill, and then you've got your service resources that have those skills. Like I think that might be an easier development, lighter and lift effort. Because the idea of this is we should be able to stand this up in a day, if not 2 days, just to get discovery rolling and get the project team hands on keys or hands on thumbs or device on thumbs.
The other sort of special, unique, annoying thing about skills that you're pointing out is if you add them, you can't get rid of them. So
Right.
maybe you're building in an environment that's only going to be used for this showing off. So 5 skills that are called test or Leanne test aren't so bad, but
Mm.
once they're in there, they're stuck in there. So that's unfortunate. But yeah,
Yeah, we can
I
rename
agree.
them, but we can't delete them. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely don't do 100 because if it's we actually only have five. Then you're stuck with 95 skills that you have to Z.
Yeah.
Like,
Or
how do
you
you
add
get
one
rid of
called
those?
test and later on someone needs to
Yeah.
be skilled in testing. Like which,
Yes.
oops.
Yeah. Testing is actually a real skill. Good call. Oh, so yes, definitely some gotchas there. So definitely smart, start small, but again, enough to illustrate the capabilities. Oh, this is pretty cool. This piece, service territories. Okay. Lots of gotchas in service territories. One of the biggest pain points that we have with territories is that scheduling the start and end time is always taken in the context of the service territory's operating hours time zone. So, what does that mean? It means that if I need to schedule something in Eastern time zone, but I have a single time territory that is that only has one operating hours call in there in the context of Pacific time zone, all of my appointments are going to get scheduled in the context of Pacific time zone. So if I wanted something at 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern, that's going to end up being, oh, what direction? Here I go, math. What is that, like 11 o'clock or 9, 10, 11, like 12 o'clock? What is the math? Or plus, right? Or is
You
it
want it,
backwards?
if
Six
you want it to
hours.
be at 9 Eastern, it's going to be 6 Pacific,
Thank you.
right?
Backwards. Right. So that's not going to be great. So as a dispatcher, I have to do some fancy footwork and think, okay, this customer's in Eastern. I can't just pick 9 o'clock Pacific time for 9 o'clock Eastern. Right. So you have to do this kind of mental gymnastics. And as you can see, like some people are dyslexic with their time zones. I'm not going to do the math in the right direction. And then is it 3 hours or 2 hours? Is it a an area that respects daylight savings, like Denver time zone or whatever it is? There are some that don't respect daylight savings. So is it two right now or is it 3 hours different? So this has been a pain for us for a really long time. So, at a very bare minimum, what we do to start, if they're based in the US and they service the US, we will create territories that are time zone chunked out, right? So, if we have polygons, I likely would not set up polygons for this initial thing. I would just do Eastern time zone, Atlantic, Mountain, Central, Pacific. Probably would do the two Mountain Denver and Mountain Phoenix ones just to illustrate some don't follow daylight savings, and we have to take that into consideration. So that's usually the baseline that I start with.
Yeah. I think the challenge there, though, without the polygons is where on your records, what is going to determine which territory I fall into, unless you make some big table or custom areas. This zip code is here. And I don't know when it's split, but that might be a lot of work. And then Do you have a definitive source for that? How to tell them, or,
Excellent.
yeah, or you start small, like the demos. You say, "Hey, it's San Francisco. We all know that's Pacific. Now let's grow up." And if you do draw your polygons, make sure they stop where the time zones stop.
And we had a customer who wanted to do this repeatable thing, and we invested some time on the project to develop a really detailed polygon that was time zone based. And now this is now part of our library of artifacts. So as an implementer, that might be something you may be willing to invest in. The in Europe though, how do the time zones work in Europe? Isn't it a little bit simpler? Each country is treated differently, or is it? Yeah, Tom, it depends.
Kind it depends. If you're looking towards Ireland and UK, they are off by 1 hour, so that's GMT or UTC more or less. And Central Europe most likely has one time zone, and then to the eastern part, it starts shifting again.
Gotcha.
Gets especially worse if you're dealing with both continents. If you're dealing with North America and Europe, you have your dispatchers sitting in Europe centrally, and
That's the tough one for sure.
especially around daylight saving times, because I think North America switches in the first weekend of March, while we switch on the last weekend of March.
Oh, is that what it? That's
Normally,
awful.
normally Eastern time zone is about 6 hours behind us, but around that time, then it's suddenly 5 for about 3 weeks.
Not that problem. I have people that I work with in Hawaii, and they don't respect daylight savings. So right now we're 6 hours, but yeah, during the winter months, it's
Yeah,
only 5.
same like Arizona, I think.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, fun times, time zone. It's probably the bane of our existence over here. Yeah, so usually we'll start off with some baseline territories. I usually ask pretty early on if they have some case where they want to schedule at a depot. So, like a service bay or a repair depot or like an in site training, things like that. That's where we would see some territories get created here. But like we look at how it new. Go ahead. Do you want to
Yeah,
say
that
something?
would be an excellent point for your differences in work types too. Ones that might have an, what do they call it, an exact appointment, and this we're
Yes.
anticipating is either virtual or is in a showroom kind of thing.
Yep. Exactly. Back in the day, there was an implementation workshop, like implementing field service 101. Should dig that back up because I do feel like that was a really good like use case because they did both on site and traveling jobs in the same thing. So they showed how to set that up. But that was useful. The fact that we can define the new hours right in this service territory window, I thought was pretty friendly. If there was already existing hours, we could just use that. But the fact that we can define them here, I thought was pretty useful. The one challenge that we've been seeing from customers was, well, I don't know what the hours should be for that time zone. We're just going to go based off of like the technician's hours. But sometimes technicians like we have a dedicated technician covering a particular area. And it could even be for like a contractor. A contractor's only going to cover their territory. And we don't know whether it's going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 9 to 5. It could be that they're there Mondays. It could be that they're there, right? So the whole concept of shifts, that doesn't get taken into consideration here. And all the various flexibility in terms of when someone is available to be on site. So usually what I do when I'm just standing something up is I just go with like the operating hours for each time zone. I do make it generic And for the territories, I do make it one large time block. And then I get into the time zone, because we have to look at the time zone that's captured in the service settings. Do I have it here? Hold on. So in field service settings, for the global action, we've got the book appointment that is being respected for the scheduling action,
The one that
which is
chunks up the
different,
day into the time slots. Yeah.
which
I
is very different from these operating hours. So go ahead with
yeah.
your thought.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's it, it, like you see the onion peel away when you start to use that for the first time and you realize like
Yeah.
it's laying it like you use one book of this gold calendar, which is probably 3 hour slots, assuming as it comes out of the box. The time
Mm-hmm.
zone of that does not matter. It
Mm-hmm.
gets, I
Exactly.
think there's confusion and there's plenty of hours spent drinking and looking at it, trying to do what it's supposed to do. That there are conversions that happen behind the scenes. I think you experienced that with Agent Force recently, where
Yeah.
oh, it's trying to fill a gap, but it's trying to apply it in the wrong time zone. So it knows there's something to do, but it's like stumbling. That the minute you realize it's taking this op hours, it doesn't matter what the time zone is for that. It's applying it over the time zone where the work is and then go into town. That's like freeing. You can think, okay, I trust it. The other point where you're making the op hours look like a normal week. Oh, I haven't decided. Just make it 9 to 5. The first
Mm-hmm.
glance you get at the Gantt like that, it looks nifty, right? Oh, these gray periods, that's nighttime. No one's going to work. When they eventually creep into, I need availability all around the clock, the the visual cues of what day am I looking at or where does my day divide, they go away. If there's some availability, yeah, you might have those color changes, but the one day bleeds into the next, I guess the point. You once they crack past the base need of 9 to 5 is how we'll treat it. Sad because you build your little stub like this. Hey, look, it's easy to tell when night is, and then it's never that easy once it gets to the build.
That's right. Yeah. But it's enough for them to understand like what it looks like, and then they'll start getting creative. I feel like there was one really big project that we had where it was like it finally clicked to them, like the difference between operating hours and shifts. And oh, I understand what you mean by availability versus this default operating hours. Like the moment that it clicks, it's oh, phew, finally. I don't remember what I said that made it click for you, but I'm so glad it finally did, because you go through all these iterations and all these examples and you show them, okay, this is what it looks like when you have a shift. This is what it looks like when it doesn't, like the concept of the gray zone and the white zone and all of that. And then the yellow, if we get into extended time. So yeah, there's definitely a lot to unpack with service territories, because we are talking about availability plus how are the slots being presented to a customer. For service territories that you are assigning to a service resource, you can keep them open. And in fact, from a performance perspective, I understand it's preferred to keep it one long chunk. And part of the reason is you,
Yeah.
it's like a start and stop, a start and stop. And if you chunk it out, and it's almost like too much for the engine to think about. So we should really be thinking about our service territory slots as one long chunk of time.
People's
On
availability is from the start of their day to the end of the, even if I'm supposed to have a 1 hour lunch in the middle or I go take a nap or something, you make the day be from beginning to end and you do something else to make them not available in the middle,
exactly.
or the engine will start pouring steam. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So when I present the workbook, I send them, sir, where do you perform business and what is the address? and then I ask a question, or like ultimately where that service territory is, the service territory address, sorry. I usually describe that as, do they start, they being the techs, do they start their day at a depot or a warehouse or head office or the branch office? And if the answer is yes, then we would like the service territories. If the technicians start their day from home, then the service territory member gets the address. And so that's a question that I have. Sometimes I want both, right? Like sometimes it's both. Like sometimes I have a service territory address and sometimes I have a home address, because some of the guys start off at the depot and some of the people, they start off at their home. So you could have a blend of both. So I usually just put some sort of main address. If they don't give it to me in the workbook, I'll choose like the city hall of whatever, like major city that I'm going to pick. Like, just, I'm going to choose this as the middle of the area. Maybe this is going to be good, just to, again, demonstrate travel time.
And an example where there's multiple depots in the same territory, do you just pick one or do you split the difference?
I usually pick one, and then during the discovery, I would say who starts when and where. And that's because it's not dynamic. You have to put something
Yes.
and it stays there. And
Yeah.
so if we get into something dynamic, meaning to say, oh, sometimes we have our technicians, they spend the night out remote somewhere and they sleep over at a hotel. So if we ever hear a traveling tradesperson or a traveling tech scenario where it's a large territory, and in order to cover the whole area, they basically spend the week dotting around the whole region to satisfy the job for the week. And so we basically need to start our day at the hotel that they're staying at. That's a totally custom situation. We cannot demonstrate that out of the box, but this is where the conversation starts, and show them what a relocation looks like, show them what changing the territories look like, show them what a resource absence with the hotel address looks like. So there's 3 different ways that we could create this. And yeah, we're solved for it. And yeah, is any of them perfect? Not necessarily. So my preference is the absences, because it's a record that you have to create, because I know where I'm going to be staying. So create an absence with that hotel address. I don't love resource relocation because it moves them to another territory. So what, every single time I'm going to create a sub territory for what? So that one's a weird one. Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like creating a relocation to satisfy that I start somewhere different, then what work are they going to get? Only via drag drop or something else artificial you do to the work that's nearby them to make it be in the sub territory that you didn't have when they were given that assignment. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't like that either. There had been some bugs with recurring absences. Let's say someone's going to be away for 3, 4 weeks, and then, oh, you want to make them stay at that hotel for the 3, 4 weeks. And I think they were specific to address information. I know I spun up like custom like recurrences in the past because they didn't have it. Then the minute they added it, there was some bug. And I think it was that the address data didn't go with it. So you had to make your own thing that said, this one's a recurrence, and now get the address from somewhere else. So
Yeah.
maybe on
I
the
don't know
service
that.
resource or some other. Yeah, it was right when they released it. Maybe they fixed it, but I
Oh, I
wouldn't.
see. Okay.
I,
Something to
I,
test for sure.
yeah,
As a, you've
something
scraped your knuckles on that before. And if
definitely.
someone's going to build it, yeah, test that. Good to know. Recurrence.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's pivot into the service resources. One thing that when we started off with the workbook, oh, great. So, okay.
Supposing there's a PSG there.
That's
Yeah.
probably something yucky
Mhm.
here. I'm going to do what they suggest I should do and turn it off and on again.
Yeah.
The good old.
And so this area of setup, this new sort of quick setup is not necessarily aftermarket, but it is coming now. And everything you're showing with the workbook is like how people have done these things themselves up till now. Now here's
Mhm.
this sort of central place to do it. And you're putting out other dependencies and stuff, but it's like when there's trying to create a service resource, well, are these for net new users or existing users? Or maybe it works for both. The other thing to be cautious of, stuff like, isn't it omni-channel that, or some sets of the telephony that do use service resources for non-field service purposes? Like there might be skills and service
Well,
resources in the system that have nothing to do with
and
field
service
service.
territories and work types. So
Yeah.
service, okay, good. Well, yeah, good call out. Okay, hold. Let me just
So like
reset here.
maybe they have baked all that in. We built all this, so we
Yes.
understand. But if there's
I'm
an
not
assumption
sure.
that this is all net new, it might be.
Yeah, so I'm in the simple demo org, which isn't so simple. And if I look at the work types, I don't know if any of these, let's go into all the work types. So let's go into here and let's look at all the work types. Here, Lightning scheduler licenses. Yeah, so these somehow were filtered out of here. New product training. New product training. Although it's possible, let's open this one. And more customizations. That's what kicks it out to see the record.
Does that have that type field on it that you saw on that list view?
Yeah, there was one that was like specifically for type lightning scheduler. Although this is a custom field. So this is a lightning scheduler one.
So it's not really appropriate to field service, is what you're saying,
Yeah, and it's still showing.
in that
Uh-huh.
wizard area. Yeah. So
Uh-huh.
I guess it's just a caution. Like this can be very helpful, but if it's trying to lay over a green field, that's one story. If it's trying to lay over something
Yeah.
where something else is built that uses those objects, there could be clashes, or who knows, misunderstanding, or it could do half the job, or hey, I didn't need to make a new user for Bruce. He was already in here. I didn't need to make a new service
Mhm.
resource for Bruce because he was already an Omni agent and had skills for that. Now we need to put him on the road.
Yeah.
So hopefully they consider
Good
all
one.
those things, but it could be a head scratcher when you're sitting here go, look, just like you do, why do I have all these work types? Oh, they're
Yeah.
in there for something else.
Yep. Field so service resource for field service permission set group. Okay, so which is this was grayed out. So it's looking specifically for a permission set group that doesn't exist, which is possible because I didn't fire one up. And I could just do that right now just to see. So let's just do new permission set group. So the cool thing about this whole thing is this whole thing being the new checklist thing, setup checklist, is it will create the permission set group and it will add all of the permission stats to it. And then when you're creating the new service resource here, it'll assign it to them. So I have a feeling the reason why this is grayed out, again, this is a simple demo org, so something isn't totally excellent here. But let me just add.
Or do you think it was wanting you to do the dispatcher one as well? Because that one
Yeah,
step was do both of those. I don't know.
I might have to do both, but I want to at least do. So we need the mobile, we need resource, and we need these three are required. Now, this one we might need as well. Oh, we're going to find out later, but these are the three. Now, one of the things that, you know how like with advancement of tech, it also means that you lose that. I want to use the word tribal knowledge, but there's probably a better word for it, but it's just that the nuance, you lose the nuance of the build, right? So people aren't going to remember that technicians always need these three things at a bare minimum, right? And then we've got all these, then you'll have your own custom additional perms that they need to, which is the benefit of having these perm set groups. But if it's getting automatically created for you, you lose that kind of, I don't know, nuance. I can't think of another better word. Okay, so let's see if it will do it. Might be okay, but let's see. It's probably looking for a specific API name that was generated with this group. So I'll just let the team know that we're having an issue playing with this. But the one issue that we had with when creating service, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So two things though. So the PSGs do have to calculate. Or do you have your other tab open where you were making it? If you go back to a list of perm set groups, if it says updated, that means it's done. But
At the
you're
top
right.
of the list. Or
On the right, it does say status updated. But
let's just refresh it. You're thinking I have to refresh, maybe?
Yeah, like anytime you add members to it, it starts to think, and you can even see that in the audit log.
Let's see.
I mean, the other thing I'm thinking, like, is it possible
No, I think it's
trying to
the
look
API
for?
name.
Is it possible it's trying to look for someone with that perm set group? It's poorly worded, but if it means I can't make a service resource because no one has that group.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. So let's just review what the elements of the service resource and what that tool is doing for us. Remember actually in here in the field service package, we were able to go into here and go to guided setup. So what they're looking to do is replace the managed package, user creation, and service resource creation here. Because we were able to, no, we still had to create the user beforehand. So I had to create all of the users first. And then once they had their licenses assigned to them, then they would appear here. And then I would be able to assign the service territory member to them and then add them. And then they would become a service resource. So this required so many steps. And then if you wanted to assign, this is the desktop experience and the mobile experience. What's this licenses in use? Yeah, scheduling license, mobile license, or both. So this is the green is the scheduling license. And then the pink one is the mobile license. But we won't need to do that in this new one. But you can also assign the skills too. So what that was missing here as well. So just because you created the service territory member, which was one nice thing, we're in this view, we're not able to add the skills. So let's pop out Gloria Barnes. The process of creating a service resource before was so extensive. You create the user, sign the perms, create the service resource record, assign the service territory member and optionally assign the skills. But at least those 4 steps needed to be done. If for whatever reason you forgot to assign a service territory member, that user wouldn't have access to the mobile app. And if they didn't have the perm, you wouldn't create the service resource. So there were just so many little nuances about setting up a service resource that if you didn't nail it down the first time, then the project team logging in for the first time, they wouldn't be able to access it.
God forbid inventory.
So actually, am I done with this thing already? For crying out loud, where are we here? Hold on, cancel. Are we done yet? Dispatchers. I don't give a rip about dispatchers. Like, great, I can create a user, assign them the perm. That's nice. This wasn't as big of a pain because we didn't need to create a service resource. This is just a perm thing for me. So, like, this is saving some time, but yay. The big one for me were these kind of 3 ones. Let's move on and talk about inventory, because is this table stakes? One of the things that I heard from a new customer, they're totally greenfield. I'm super excited. I hope we get to work with this customer because it's a very interesting use case. We had a discussion of whether they wanted inventory right out of the gate. They're like, where's all this data stored and who's going to maintain it? And he was like, I don't really have a process for that. And I said, okay, I can turn on inventory so that you can see what it looks in the mobile app. And I can show you what it looks like on the desktop experience, because the desktop experience of inventory is not exciting. Am I wrong? Like, you have to create a location, and then you have to create all of the products, assuming that they already are in the system. So if you import all the products, and then we have to create product items for every single location. Oh, great. This page layout hasn't even been updated. Okay, let's just update this real quick. So some baseline inventory needs to be done that has not been taken into consideration for this quick setup thing. Part of the reason is that they just wanted to get customers scheduling right away. That was the primary goal. But if we're looking to also get a sense of what the whole build is going to look like, and they understand what inventory management looks like in the mobile app and desktop, we might as well stand it up. So already this is a simple demo org. Already I'm seeing this is at Alan Reed's location. Why that's a site is beyond me. So let's just look at all the locations. Okay, no Gloria Barnes? Okay, Gloria Barnes doesn't have a location. I am going to create one for Gloria Barnes because that's who I'm logged in as in this org. Oh my God. Okay, so Van. Oh, great. Yeah, see, I don't even have this set up.
You don't have inventory or mobile location
Exactly
fields exposed to you. Yeah.
So here we go. We got to clean this up, which means on our checklist, if we go down here and look at, okay, so I skipped all the starter kit stuff. I don't have anything in table stakes here, do I? Nothing here for inventory. And I put that all under advanced, and it's minimal. So I do feel like I am going to add basic inventory here to stand it up so that everybody knows what the minimum amount is to just get the thing going. Number 1 for sure is update the page layout. Where did it go?
Yeah. A reason it may have slid to advanced for you is there is some infrastructure, right? Find the locations and the layout like you're doing, but are there any products for consumables in the Do they just
Got
sell
it.
their services and that's what the products
Exactly.
are to date? You may have to go back and have them think, well, okay, and is this a different model of a bolt? Do we just call it a bolt, or is it every single different thread depth? Those are different products of which we will have product items. And I never want my salespeople to see these on an opportunity to order, but I need them in the system so we can consume them.
Yeah.
There's a lot behind it before you're saying 2 hours to get to your first scheduling. It may be days before you can do your first consumption, unless you just push on them and say, in this sandbox, in this org, we're going to make one bundle of wire ties or something. That's our
Mhm.
test product. And surprise, every single work order or line, and that's another thing to decide where you're going to consume, is going to have either nothing consumed or it's going to have some quantity of this one product. Imagine the rest.
Exactly. I love that. So one thing that's also missing here too. So there is quite a lot that we would have to stand up here. So one is the actions to transfer, the actions to add a new product item. Like I usually do like when I receive an item. So there's location and then there's the other objects. So maybe what we can do for next week is we can just finish, or I can do like a standard, a standalone, stand up inventory kind of video, a standalone video, and then I can add the steps in here because I think that deserves its own little video. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the highest point of friction for it all is someone's got to work with this stuff once it's in there. So again, if all we do is sell our services, but we send people in the field who consume products, what are they? How do they get in the system? What happens when we have a new
Mm-hmm.
one? But then, okay, you have the perfect greenfield system, and we know in Bob's truck there's 100 wire ties.
Mm-hmm.
When he needs more and they have to come from a warehouse, who is modifying those? Who's realizing new things into the system when they're purchased? That it really, it's a tail with a tail with a tail.
Yeah.
And when and if you step back from it and say, why are we doing this? What is it for? It's
Yeah.
so I can show what we consumed. I guess
Yeah.
so I can make your van whole again later. Hey, you used
Yeah.
100 wire ties. You might need 100 more later. But it's, do we need to show the customer, to fix your air conditioner, we consumed this compressor and this bundle of wire ties that are part of your warranty today, but might not be part of your warranty tomorrow and will charge you for.
Mm.
And then to keep it straight, are there 100 less wire ties on your truck than there are on Lori's truck? But she starts consuming, hey, we better bring her back to some par level. You can think about all that stuff, but you've actually got to make it work. And often there are feeder systems, right? The ERP, and that is the source of truth. Somewhere
Mhm.
else, and somewhere else knows how many there are. And it seems like a little baby step task. We just want to tell the customer we consumed this many on this, but it's tied up in 800 different things.
Yep. And as I type through, what does it stand up? What was it take to stand up inventory, right? Like we've got the locations object, we got to create the record, we have to assign the location to the service resource, which means we have to update the page layout to make sure location is on the page layout.
Mhm.
Optionally, yeah, go ahead.
And I suppose the address on the van doesn't matter, but if there are warehouses and they need their addresses, there's the pesky address object
Mhm.
and how it is both a child of the location and indicated as a lookup from the location. My visitor address is this.
So guys, one time I set up something for a customer that wanted just to list on an invoice or a sale order or something, what they consumed, but they didn't want to maintain inventory. The way I did it is I added all their part inventory, like they had 9 million.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about
That's a
replenishing.
good point.
Yeah. I was thinking of exactly that project, Lori. That's
Yeah.
like the easy way is it's Mary Poppins bag. You have a million of everything. And I think the drag and the caution on that project, Lori, was like, we have had everything, but now this van ran out of this, or we don't carry this product anymore. Why do I have to scroll through so many things we used to have? If you delete the product items from a location, every consumption record that referred to that item gets cascade deleted too. It's a nightmare. So, yeah, having infinity of these, if they're the ones we're playing with, yeah, that's a way to show we got it on the work order record and it came out of Mary Poppins' van. But then there can be so many records to look at in the van, it may get unusable in some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a good point.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a way to make it star items or preferred items. The mobile has evolved, right? There are list views now on mobile. We can just pop down there, popular items or my hot items or something instead of just the inventory UI. We have a client who is working with a separate inventory system built in Salesforce, but that's not so FS mobile or offline friendly. So we're working in two systems, product items and these other custom objects. And when the transfer happens, the receipt is on the FS level because it's all built out in FS mobile, but they wanted more stuff. They wanted a photo and they wanted condition of the received items. And that big happy receive button was our enemy. It's like, you've built out this beautiful UI for transfers, and we have to throw it in the garbage because it's too easy to just say receive without the other things. But the list views made it very easy. My incoming transfers, and we deprecated the out of the box inventory spot, and you could build a handsome little UI with those list views they have now.
That's true.
Yeah, Mary Poppins bag is a way forward. That is true.
Yeah. So we've got a bunch of optional steps here. Some scenario where the depot is a service territory location and everybody can access the inventory that's there. So I can see my van inventory and I can see the inventory at the warehouse. In order for me to be able to consume from both those locations, I'd have to assign the locations to the service territory. The challenge I have is I lose a capability to add all required products. So if there's no requirement to manage required products and then consume all the required products, then we're good to go with something like that. But if they need to consume all required products, then they're not going to like this secondary territory type of thing. But we definitely need to update the work type page layout related list to show what the potential of required products could be. Sometimes we have no idea, right? Like we might always know that we're always going to need a fan whenever we're doing a fan replacement. But do I also need a belt? I don't know. Or is there, so this is a templated thing that could work. But anyways, we show it as a potential and get the customer thinking, do we have that data? Can we leverage this capability? I've never seen it applied really.
Yeah.
Except when we actually did it from an order, right? Like we are ordering these particular parts. So you must make sure that these required products appear, but that wasn't from a work type. That was just required products on a work order. I don't know if I've ever seen work related products on a work type in practice.
Required products is it's so scarily named because very early on when you're trying to get the handle of how does the scheduling engine work, you're like, oh, that says required products. It must exclude the people who don't have it. You've got required skills. It doesn't include me if I don't have the skill. It must exclude me, therefore, if I don't have the product. And when you hear the reasoning, it's almost like it should be called suggested products.
Yeah.
Get this on hand by the time you go to the thing. because the one I have today, I might consume on a different job between now. It's always make sure you have this on hand on the way to the thing.
Yeah.
And it's eye opening when you're like, it's not considering who has it, even if it's like a specific, you've got the serialized, you've got the thing that needs to go to the place, but the system can't help you by saying Leanne's got one. So let's prefer her in some way.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be mindful of the time. We will continue this conversation. I'm going to spin up another recording showing us the baseline of setting up inventory and what that could look like. And then we'll just continue going through this process and tie it up. So thank you all for chiming in and for your, all your participation and insights.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.